HMS Drake, the Tier VIII Tech Tree British heavy cruiser, received a rather insignificant buff in the October 2024 update. It now has 49,800 HP. I don't know exactly what it had prior to the buff, but it was still in the 40,000 range. So I think ultimately the extra HP maybe protects you from a single battleship full penetration. I don't know. It might be about that much. In any case, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's fairly insignificant. But the Drake was not a terrible ship before the buff. It's not a terrible ship after the buff either. I think it's got good main battery firepower. The HE hits hard, it's got a decent fire chance, and it's got great penetration. The AP can also hit hard and be absolutely lethal to enemy cruisers. It can even do a number to broadside battleships, as we'll see in sort of the opening sequence of this battle. I think if Wargaming's goal was to buff this ship into something slightly more effective, they might have considered giving it the radar consumable. After all, its predecessor on the tech tree, the Tier VII Albemarle, has radar. Why doesn't this thing? Is the thought process that if the Drake did have radar, it would be too powerful? I simply don't see that. It's got a 15-second reload on these guns. Sure, if it shoots an enemy destroyer with its HE, that can be devastating to the enemy destroyer, but I think if we want to make this thing more effective, we ought to just give it radar and make it make sense that this thing succeeds the Albemarle on the tech tree and has less utility than that ship. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but here we are. The reason I wanted to show you this battle, though, doesn't have too much to do with the Drake's buff. I think I've said all that can really be said on that buff so far. There's not much to it, and there's not much analysis to be provided. Instead, I wanted to show you this game because I think this battle is representative of the reason I continue to play World of Warships Legends even 5 years into the game's life cycle. At its best, this game is dynamic. The interactions between the three classes of surface ships present sort of a, I guess you could say, a rock, paper, scissors dynamic, but I don't even think that's quite true anymore. But the way that the surface ships interact with each other and the role that they all play, I think it meshes well. And when this game is firing on all cylinders and you've got two teams that are being, competitive with each other, let's say, maybe not every individual teammate is doing the best job they possibly could, but the outcome of the battle is not getting decided within the first 5 minutes. We see that far too often in this game. We see one-sided blowouts where it's very clear that one team or the other is going to win, and very little can be done to turn the tide and change the outcome. However, often enough, you get battles that are not decided in the first 5 minutes, but instead go right down to the wire. And in those kind of battles, every individual player's choices matter. So what I want to do is look at how this battle continues to develop and talk about the choices that I and a couple other teammates make. Because things are going to start looking poor, but near the end, there is going to be an opportunity to turn things around. The question will be, can we make use of that opportunity or not? Well, stay tuned and we'll find out. But for now, we've started on this alpha flank. We wanted to push out toward the edge of the map to the westernmost flank. That's something that I see a lot of cruiser players not doing these days for reasons that are beyond me. But I'll put it to you this way. If you're a cruiser who spawns on the flank, I think probably the worst thing you could choose to do is go for the center of the map. Why is that? Well, that is because cruisers are technically capital ships. They're large, at least relative to destroyers, for example. They're smaller relative to battleships, and they have citadels, unlike destroyers. They also tend to not have a lot of armor. So if you're going to put yourself in the center of the map, where there's a good possibility you're going to be spotted, then you're going to be able to be shot at by all kinds of different angles. And a battleship might be able to mitigate that kind of damage because it has better armor. A cruiser cannot. So I think the best thing to do is, especially if you spawn on a flank, try to play the flank. We ultimately didn't have to do too much on this alpha flank. The friendly cruiser is going to secure the cap for us. and the enemy teams on this side of the map have been dispatched, so we need to head to the other side. The kill count is fairly even. Well, it was until I said that. We just lost another ship, so we're down 4 to the enemy's 3 kills. But we secured the Alpha Cap. There doesn't appear to be any threat to that cap from the red team. And we've got a friendly destroyer who is inside of Bravo and is going to flip it. We're also spotted here by an enemy destroyer, which I believe was the Daring. So we're going to put sonar on, and we're going to hope that none of these battleships are paying attention to us, because if we do have to dodge torpedoes, then that might involve giving broadside to one of the battleships. Speaking of which, there are 2 battleships, a Grosse Kurfürst and a Schlieffen, that are pushing through the Charlie Cap right into the bow-tanking friendly battleship over there. It's not going to be ideal for that guy. As I've said many times before, you don't want to find yourself in a scenario where you're forced to bow tank against 2 ships, especially ships like GK and Schlieffen. Both of those ships, being German battleship brawler types, generally want to close the distance and play at close range. And so you don't want to find yourself in a scenario where you're facing them down with your bow and they're pushing into you. Their secondaries are going to melt you on the way in. They've got armor to mitigate any damage you can do to them in return. And really, if you're in a scenario like our unfortunate teammate, you're gonna get pummeled. And then your only choice is going to be to maybe turn around. If you do that, you're going to be presenting broadside. And you can see now our teammate is going forward. I think his intention is maybe to turn to the left and put the island between himself and the 2 battleships. Definitely a thought that I'd probably have if I were in his shoes and playing his ship. But at the same time, I would not have compromised my ability to maneuver by sitting there and bow tanking. Not to pick on the guy too much or anything. I don't think he's doing anything particularly egregious. I'm just telling you from the perspective of somebody who's watching him play and somebody who has a certain idea about how battleships should be played. Battleships are sort of my favorite class, even to this day. Well, he's doing exactly what I advise others to avoid doing. And as you can see, it hasn't worked out well for him. Now, you could say that maybe I or the destroyer should have provided him more support, but I am sitting here trying to farm HP off the GK and the Schlieffen, doing a at least halfway decent job of it, maybe not great, but what's the alternative? Am I supposed to push in and get next to him to provide him will to rebuild, so that the Schlieffen and the GK can see me and penetrate my armor with their large caliber main battery guns? I don't think so. And if I were to sail forward south of the Bravo cap, you can see that that cap is occupied by a destroyer, which could spot me, and then there's a battleship to the north of the cap. So if I sailed past it, I'd be giving broadside to that battleship and I'd be dead. There's no option for me to push in here, unfortunately. And now it's just me, the friendly destroyer, and the friendly cruiser who took the Alpha Cap earlier, versus 3 battleships and 2 destroyers. This game, though, is theoretically at least still winnable. Schlieffen is pushing in, but as long as we can mitigate the damage from his main battery and stay outside of his secondary range to some degree, or at least avoid the secondaries, we should be able to survive for a long time and farm him down. Plus, we've got the help of our destroyer, whose torpedoes are thankfully on point. It allows us to take down the Schlieffen. That leaves just 2 battleships and 2 destroyers remaining. But in order to win this match, we're going to need to take out the enemy destroyers. There's one of them, the Daring. Our friendly DD opens fire. I'm a little bit hesitant to expose broadside like this because I know there's an unspotted battleship out there somewhere behind those islands, and he would be able to get my broadside theoretically. But we've got to risk the turn. We do. Unfortunately, we aim very poorly at the Daring, and our entire salvo misses. If it hadn't, maybe the Daring would be able to be taken down easier, but the friendly cruiser, which I think was in Alaska, uses the radar, and Daring is caught bow in next to that island. He's going to try to reverse, but he's going to be caught in that radar for about 30 seconds, and all of my teammates, well, all 2 of them and me, of course we're going to shoot at that guy because he's the only one spotted. Inexplicably, the Z-46 appears. I don't know how he got spotted. I don't know if he just got too close to me, but there he is. Obviously, he's going to be launching torpedoes. We have the sonar going, but we need to be very careful about how we avoid these torpedoes. We don't want to go in front of this Bravo cap. There's still 2 battleships out there. They can see us. What we want to do now that we've succeeded in dodging the torpedoes is turn hard to port. We need to put that island between ourselves and the Bravo cap, and we need to take whatever this Z-46 is giving us. I have no idea why he is shooting at me with his guns. Maybe he recognizes my name, but this is the kind of thing you do if you're looking to throw the battle for your team. There's no reason for this Z-46 to put himself at risk like that. We net the high caliber metal as the Z-46 goes behind the island, admittedly still floating, but with a lot less HP. And if his actions give us any indication, there's a good chance he's going to come around that island and continue to fire at us and reveal himself for no real reason. That's going to give us a fighting chance in this battle, but we also need to secure this cap and ideally take down at least one of these battleships as soon as possible. The friendly destroyer is pushing in. We've got a fire burning on the GK out there. Z-46 has not yet revealed himself, but there we get spotted, and we know that he's come around the corner of that island. Nothing else besides him could be spotting us. Luckily, the friendly destroyer is moving in. I'm content to maybe wait here, but we need to get closer to the island. Z-46 does continue to shoot at us and reveals himself. He goes behind that little rock there, but once again, he's come around the corner, so he's revealed us once more. Friendly destroyer, which is daring, is going in. He will hopefully be able to spot that Z-46. I think his sonar helpfully picks up the torpedoes the guy launched, and he deploys a smoke screen, which will be useful. Finally, we get a good hit on the Z-46, and the daring finishes him off. So, we are at least a little bit closer to winning this battle. We've got a relatively low health Conqueror and a relatively low health GK out there. Unfortunately, daring is still spotted by the GK. He should go dark momentarily, and we need to not get killed by these final torpedoes from the deceased Z-46. Unfortunately, we do take one, which reduces our HP to a little bit below half. And here, I think, well, I'm not exactly sure what I should have done. On the one hand, the daring is inside of the Bravo cap. He's not spotted anymore. There's no way for the enemy team to spot him unless he chooses to be spotted. So he's going to secure that cap, and he's got torpedoes on the way toward the GK. But at this point, there's just a little over 2 minutes left. So what do? I think our only choice is to sink at least one of these battleships and secure the cap. Then we might have enough points to win. The enemy is ahead of us by just about 200, but we're going to start gaining points at a faster rate than they are. And unfortunately, the GK is sailing in a direction that makes it basically impossible for me to deal any damage to him. In retrospect, I almost wonder, should I have pushed into the cap a little bit more aggressively? There's not a lot of time left, but we see the direction that the GK was sailing in, and so I decide to turn in that direction in order to intercept him. By the time we see him again, hopefully he'll be on low enough HP that we should be able to take him out. And if we can, well, we do have 2 caps, there's going to be a big point swing, and our control of both of those caps might be enough to put us ahead on points. It's really hard to tell, but that is the decision we're making. And I wonder, after having played this battle, whether I should have pushed in toward the Conqueror. He might have sunk me, and then we certainly would have lost. But there goes the GK. He goes down to the fire from the daring, and that puts us at 621 to 669. Conqueror is playing this game right. He's not pushing in. He's not risking being sunk by the friendly destroyer. I think he's doing the best thing he can possibly do, which is being safe and retreating. And now, 642 to 678, less than 30 seconds left to go. Are we able to secure the victory on points? We're only down by about 30 of them, but less than 20 seconds left to go, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to catch up. unfortunate. I think if the GK had gone down just a little bit sooner, then we would have won this match. But I think this destroyer and myself, I think we made the best choices we possibly could throughout the duration of the match. Unfortunately, it's not always enough, but this is the kind of game I love playing. This game was winnable for the blue team if some other things had happened, and I think both Daring and I did our best. And I'd much rather play games like this than a one-sided blowout. That's why I keep coming back to World of Warships Legends even after 5 years. And I would suspect a lot of you are the same. Let me know in the comments section, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.